Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Noah, and I'm the Creative Strategy Lead at yellowHEAD. A little bit about yellowHEAD. We are a performance marketing agency specializing in everything that has to do with performance marketing, from UA to ASO and SEO, and even our SaaS creative analysis platform, Allison. Also, we have an amazing creative studio offering end-to-end production. And today, I am super excited to speak with you about creative, and especially creative in the world post iOS 14. As you know, the world has been waiting for iOS 14 to take place, and now that it has happened, we're seeing how it's affecting us. Creative has always played a major part in any form of campaign, but now, when we're not able to fully target our audience, it has taken an even bigger role in the success of different campaigns. So today, me and these three wonderful gentlemen are going to do a creative workshop talking about creative from every angle possible, and even looking at creative examples. This will be an interactive workshop, so we're going to have a few polls for you to participate in, so feel free to cast your vote once we show them. And if you have any questions, don't wait until the end of the workshop. Feel free to write them in the chat below, and we'll address them once we get to the Q&A section. And without any further ado, guys, please share with us a little bit about yourself, and let's kick off this panel. Gabriel, would you like to be the first one to start?
Hi guys, nice to meet you. I'm Gabriel, Creative Director at yellowHEAD. Just gotta say that I'm super proud to be part of this panel today. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Will. I'm the VP of Creative at Tilting Point. I've been in the industry for about 20 plus years, working at multiple game studios, and I'm really excited to be here, and let's show some amazing work.
Hi, all. My name's Kevin. I'm part of the UA team here at Fabulous. Fabulous is an app that helps individuals create daily routines to better their well-being. And I'm pretty excited to have the conversation today.
Amazing. So first off, the topic that's on everybody's mind is iOS 14. There's no doubt that it changed the rules of the game. I would like to hear from you guys. How would you say that your creative strategy has changed with iOS 14? Will, do you maybe want to go first?
Sure. So at Tilting Point, we've been looking at this for a while, and really hoping to get on the right track before all this kicks in. And what we're finding is, obviously everybody knows creative is going to play a much bigger part in UA performance moving forward. It's always been a very key part, but it's even going to be even more now with IDF. Also, and on top of that, what we're finding is, with your creatives, you're going to need to take bigger concepts. You're going to need to be able to do bigger ideas than what you've done in the past, where you've taken a simple idea and just done small variations on successes. We're seeing that you're going to need to be able to do larger concepts. And later on in the presentation, we'll show you some examples of that, of how you can take an idea and through iteration, but large iterations of that concept to find success.
Amazing. Kevin, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, definitely. Since kind of just the rollout of the iOS 14, being able to kind of just be very specific in terms of the targeting based off the creative has been pretty difficult. So it's kind of just been thinking about creative concepts from a broader stance. Again, just with the creatives being the targeting itself. We always try to think about, what kind of assets should we develop that can kind of just reach the correct user at the right time. So this could be based off different intents of the user behavior, which could be representative of different placements. But yeah, definitely taking a more of a broader approach to the creative production.
Gabriel, any thoughts?
Yeah, so from our end, I think the main difference you could feel, it's like instead of having a lot of different campaigns, we just intend to have a bigger variety of creatives into the same ad set.
Perfect. So thanks for sharing. Now let's start with our first poll. Again, feel free to cast your vote once we start showing creative. Each time we'll show you a couple of creatives and ask you to decide which of them you felt you think performed better. We're going to start with Spiral. I'm going to show the ads now. There's a display ad and a video. Let's see it. Feel free to go ahead and cast your vote now on which you felt performed better. And Gabriel, while everybody is casting their vote, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the campaign and what you did for this client.
Great. So for those who don't know, Spiral is a banking services app. They have a very nice feature also for donators, just saying. And as usual, we base our creatives in our in the recommendations we got from Allison, our creative analysis platform. So, like, I just don't remember when was the last time I just started approached a brief without having some insights that help us save time. So for this case, Allison recommended us to use the following elements. The logo constantly, like persistent during all the length. The credit card also, because it represents the product itself. Real people in some way, it can be like the hand of some real person, or it can be like the family and so. Also like brand guidelines we should stick to. So when we just took a look, we said, okay, we have a pink color there. It's very eye-catchy. Let's go pink all the way. And the last element we got was to show app screens, because we know what you see is what you get. We want our users to understand what they're downloading. And then we came up with these two creatives, one static and one video. I hope you guys had a chance to cast your votes.
All right. Gabriel, maybe you can tell us which of these worked better.
Okay, so surprisingly enough, the static was the creative that performed better. And if I can say why I think that it performed better, is just because we have all the top performing elements recommended in the same frame. It's a static frame. So when you have like the user in an environment that has a very short time of attention, so we just had a chance to put all the elements together, and that's why we believe these were the best performing creative.
Amazing. And speaking of top performing ads, display ads, Kevin, let's have a look at some fabulous ads. Audience, feel free to go ahead and cast your vote at this time. And Kevin, maybe you can tell us a little bit, do you guys do mainly display ads? Do you do videos? What works better for you guys?
Our app is pretty comprehensive, so there's a lot of information that goes into a lot of our assets. As you can kind of see here, these are more so kind of just infographics. But within kind of just while stylistically these aren't the same, the content within the assets are pretty much similar. These have been A/B tested from a stylist standpoint previously, but the biggest difference here would be kind of just more so the titles. So you have the 5-minute stress buster, the morning formula, habits when you want to feel a certain way, etc. So again, just more so the biggest, I would say the biggest thing here, besides the style, obviously, is more so just the titles.
Perfect. Before we see and hear which of the ads perform better, Will, maybe you can try and guess which one do you feel worked better.
Okay, let's take a look at this. I think I have a little biased stance on here because I think I know the answer on this one, but I'm gonna probably maybe just guess a number on here, but let's go with number B.
B. All right. Kevin, do you want to tell us which one performed better?
Yeah, that's correct. So as you can tell, these are obviously Facebook ads pulled from the library. But yeah, going to the idea of the morning formula, my hypothesis here is that the morning formula can be applicable to anybody. Whereas, if we're trying to look for individuals looking, to relieve the stress at that very moment that we show them this ad, it may be a little bit less relevant for those individuals. Same thing with habits when you want to feel a certain way. So, my hypothesis here is, just being able to provide more of a broader, appealing asset. It's going to be most beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind me jumping in, I'd say I agree on that. I mean, if you look at the two different ads or all three of them together, you have two ads that seem to be very targeted at a certain user group. And then you have the one winning ad that has a much broader appeal. The information is very clear to read. There's a clear hierarchy from where you want to draw the user's eye throughout the ad. And the color palette is very pleasing. It has again, it has a broader appeal. It's not going after one demographic. It's very large.
Yeah, that's not to say that the other two will never work. It just may be a little more of a longer, drawn out, process of money spent, time spent to kind of just to find that very specific audience who's looking for these type of assets at the very given time.
So once you saw that this ad performs well, did you create more version along this similar design or similar messaging?
Yeah, definitely around the messaging. But the design style, we always try to come up with something a little bit different. Yeah.
Why do you change the design? Is that because, Facebook algorithm, for example, is that important?
Yeah. Again, just with, everything becoming a little bit more automated, I think it's just harder for them to identify who's the correct user for your product with these very niche ads. So yeah, the more, I guess, diverse that we can make it to make sure that we're not, showing this something similar to the same audience. Again, this is, our approach with that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we've discussed best practices for top performing ads, but things work differently for different platforms. Kevin, I know you guys have tried out a bunch of different platforms for promoting your app. Can you tell us a little bit of insight, for example, on using ads for Pinterest, for example?
Yeah, Pinterest is, I try to think about a platform that doesn't really kind of get the coverage that, some of the other platforms do, Facebook and Google get all the kind of just attention. So Pinterest is a pretty interesting one, being that I feel like there's a lot of untapped opportunity in terms of the advertising platform. You can kind of see these three here from our fabulous board. They're kind of just all pretty similar in style, color palette, and etc. So we had I have a couple of ideas in terms of like best practices here. This will primarily be for apps that have a web presence, being that they kind of more so deprecated some of the features for kind of just the app install side. But yeah, some typical takeaways here. Assets and vertical are obviously ideal, being that they take up most of the screen real estate. Pinterest being such a search-heavy platform, we want to make sure that we align the assets with the keywords that people are searching for. So in this case, if somebody's looking for a morning routine, evening routine, and the asset to the right, maybe around self-care, things like that. And then also just being that there's a lot of different assets that get served to the user in the search results. So how do we make our ads stand out? This could be with the bright colors that you see here, or it could be some type of movement within the asset. So any type of GIFs, videos, etc., that kind of just make your assets stand out in kind of just the sea of different assets that the user sees in the search results. And then also, I feel like branding may be a little bit important here too, being that there's just, again, so many different assets that the user sees at any given time to kind of just represent your brand. I feel like will be pretty important as well.
Amazing. I think that is very important when it comes to understanding that there isn't only best practices for performance marketing, but also best practices for very specific platforms. Gabriel, I know you have some example for platform-oriented creative. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so in this case, I think we work on the creatives for Tinder. I think they don't need any presentation. So the main idea here was to use the same concept, but in different platforms. So we wanted to approach their video chat. It was a new feature back in the day. And also to approach like the body language, the importance of the eye contact in your first met, and like in a more explanatory way, the love at first sight. And so we just wanted to show a couple of different tips or facts that happen while you're dating. So you can see that in the left side, we have a creative that was adapted to Facebook. We intended to go for a square ratio with big titles. And also you can see that the footages that we used, it's from some kind of stock bank of footages. And in the other hand, for TikTok, in the right side, you can see that we went to a full portrait ratio. We also tried, like we recorded these footages with our mobile phone because we wanted the asset, the footage itself, to be very grained, very raw, and to look very authentic. And also by combining these elements with some native elements that we see in the platform, like the title with the background color, that is very typical on TikTok.
Perfect. And I know you have some experience with TikTok ads. Can you tell us a little bit about how you find that the TikTok style of ads and maybe using them on other platforms? Have you seen any success running these kind of ads on a variety of different platforms?
Yeah. I think that the main thing that we also started to consume this kind of content, that it's much more authentic. We see much more user-generated content and like real people, and we feel that it's a real thing. I think this is a totally trend now.
Perfect. Will, Kevin, can you guys share a little bit? Do you have had any experience with TikTok ads?
Yeah, definitely on the TikTok side. A lot of UGC content. Definitely kind of just working with some of those micro influencers from the marketplace. The TikTok marketplace has proven to be beneficial. Again, this is more like platform specific creatives where it kind of just has to feel pretty native on the platform. So yeah, definitely is beneficial to kind of just work with those type of creators.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. You know, we've noticed with a lot of the titles that we have running on TikTok that we mimic a lot of what the trends are and what are happening. It looks more organic, a lot more not as polished work that you might throw on other networks, so that it feels really more like a user generated content.
Perfect. Now let's talk a little bit about iterations. Usually, in order to reach top performance, we need to create several types of iteration until we find a winner. Will, we want to show some examples from Tilting Point. Do you want to walk us through this original video that you guys created?
Sure. Thanks. So go ahead and play the video. Take a look at this. So as you can see through the video, we wanted to really hit home as a user progression, sort of an idea that you are this young chef, this idea that you're taking over this kitchen, you're coming in, and then the progression of the cooking through multiple scenarios, and then the success there at the end. So, the idea for the campaign or the creative itself was just that idea to really showcase you are the cook, you are in this universe, and an idea of, again, progression. So we want to take this concept or this idea, and a lot of times the way, some agencies might work, or people when they work through it, they come up with an idea, they test this one creative, and if this one creative doesn't succeed, they kind of maybe step away from it and they move on to another idea. But you're not really determining on if the concept is strong. You're determining the success based off of the how you want to say, the orientation of the content that you've put in the video. So there's a lot of ways to reorganize this content, add other little elements to it to try to back up the idea that this concept actually performs. So that's when, we take in the iteration process, variations of creating these types of videos. So what we like to do is we come up with a concept, and especially for IDF, right now in this market where you're trying to test multiple broader audiences, small changes aren't going to do a lot or affect a lot. So we're taking broader, much larger changes in these variations. So if we take a look at some of the, on the next slides, where we take a look at some of the other variations of this video, you'll see that the concept is there. The basic story elements are still there, but they've been structured or reformatted in a way that goes after different audiences, that tells a story, same story, but just in a different way. So you get different results. And then in the end, you're able to really narrow down if this concept works, if this is a strong concept, or if the concept overall is just not worth continuing on progressing through future creatives. So as you can see through that, again, it's the same information. It's being delivered, just being delivered in a different way, different structure, format. We've added elements such as you see the little emoji and things like that, live action added into it. We've added little call outs in different areas, and then just reformatted the footage. There's different sound. If you, when you play it, you'll hear different sound effects and music.
Perfect. Well, what do you consider an iteration? For example, if we wanted to give some key basics understanding, an iteration is something that requires a small change, a couple of changes at the beginning of the ad, at the end of the ad. How would you describe it?
Most definitely. So there's two ways to look at it. You have iterations, you have variations. So, an iteration is taking an ad and making small adjustments in that ad, such as switching. You could do a switch of just an end card or an intro. You can change a CTA button or a call out in some way. You can switch character A for character B. These are small iterations in an ad that you can test to see if it impacts. So if you want to run the same exact ad by just changing SpongeBob out for Patrick, you can then get results and see, hey, Patrick has better performance than SpongeBob. Okay, let's take that further. If I keep Patrick in there now and everything is the same, and let's change this music, or let's change what Patrick is saying in the content, and we get those learnings. It allows us to narrow down key elements that allow us to make an educated decisions on future creatives and to keep iterating on this successful ad. Now you have variations, which you see more here. It's a mixture of that. A variation takes a concept and you're doing larger adjustments. You're switching out content and formation of how things function in the ad or flow in the ad. You're adding different elements such as characters, live action with a little bit of a different copy. Maybe you're adding a phone popping out like you see in the third one. These are taking an ad and creating similar types of ads, but larger iterations, larger changes in them to get that bigger impact.
Awesome. Do you do iterations to the iterations?
Yes, most definitely. It's a constant learning process. So, as a creative in the industry, we look at ourselves almost like scientists in a way, where we're creating all of these different things, and everything we do is backed by data. Every decision we make is backed by data. So we're reviewing that data, and based on that data, we're making an assumption of why. We're testing that assumption and then coming back and analyzing that data when it comes back in, and learning if we were correct, if we were not correct, and then adjusting from that. So it's a never-ending cycle of this, because with every new ad you go out there, you're taking learnings from that, successful or non-successful. If they're failures, it's always a learning process to improve on.
Perfect. Now let's talk a little bit about how we evolve creatives and how we explore some of the latest current trends that we're seeing. Will, we want to present a few ads as well that you've created. We will let them run so you can discuss them.
Perfect.
As they run. Tell us a little bit about them.
Okay, I think they're running there in the background. So we're going to talk about it. There's one thing that, as artists, creative people, especially in the mobile gaming industry, we're always looking at trends. We're always looking at competitors' trends. We're analyzing those. We're analyzing social and worldwide events that are happening, and it helps drive the concepts we come up with. Now, a big trend in the industry right now across the board, is what you call a fake ad, if you want to say. So, there's a lot of debate on if fake ads are good for you or bad for you. So what I'm showcasing here is 4 different fake ads. Now, our approach when we look at ads this way is we try not to completely go against the soul or the character of the game. What is the essence of the game that the end user is going to actually play? So we look at that. We look at those elements, we dissect that, and we try to analyze and come up with saying, this ad, if we can do something that represents this in a different way. And so we'll take the first one, for example, the Arcana. Okay, it's looking at the Arcana is a very narrative type of base game, and there's other games historically that have been out that has started this type of a trend. How can we reference that to get people into the mindset of like, oh yeah, I remember doing that when I was a kid, or oh, playing that game, oh, that feeling I got from when I did that, oh, that was so much fun. They get attracted to that. It still keeps the soul and the essence of what the Arcana is, what Zombieland is, what Narcos or SpongeBob is. You have the same elements, but we're delivering it in a way that hits a broader audience and brings that some sort of a physical or an emotional reaction to it. Humorous, sad, whatever that might be.
Awesome. Audience, please feel free to cast your vote on which of these ads you felt performed better. In the meantime, maybe we can have a little conversation. Gabriel, can you share with us a little bit about creative trends that you're seeing currently?
Sure. Like in general, I prefer to call this kind of ads like gamification, because we intend to aggregate some elements that we believe that they can cause some kind of urgency in the users, and also to show that they have a kind of choices to make in the ad. So like having a human hand or a cartoon hand, even a cursor, and showing that the user can that he has certain choices that he needs to make, and he needs to make these choices in like 10 seconds. So we have, I think, 3 elements here that they are totally make the user to take action.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I agree on that front. We've found a lot of success in urgency. That idea of urgency. You have a certain time limit. You have something you have to do very quickly. And one thing with, the channels, when you see your ads running and, people are in a hurry, they're on different social networks, and these ads pop up, it kind of goes with that flow, because they have a lot that they have going on. And instead of taking that 10, 15, 30 seconds to sit there and watch this, they're thrown into a middle of some sort of situation, and they have to immediately have some sort of interaction. Can they do it? Gets them engaged, gets them excited. Again, goes back to what I said before on that emotional connection. You're connecting them in some way, whatever that might be.
Now, let's discover which of these ads performed best?
The Arcana, yes. This ad did very, very well. We had a lot of great feedback from users, even defending the ad when we had some users would come in and make comments, well, this isn't the game. You had a lot of people come back in and say, no, but this reminds me of this, or, oh my gosh, is it this? Amazing user interaction, which builds on on social and organic growth comes from this. It's an amazing reaction that we had from this ad.
Perfect.
If I can just add another thing, it's like you can get feedback straight away from your audience.
Yes.
And even if you think on certain features to develop, or maybe you can have a kind of mini games, like this is amazing because you can have the feedback straight away from the audience.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one thing we've learned is, what we do here can make a better product in the end. Okay, we do a lot of learning this way, and this allows us to work with our developers and our, and give them this information, which helps them get direct feedback from, the users that they're trying to go after and what they're thinking and what they're liking, and that helps them make improvements in the overall product.
Perfect. I have another question for you guys. We want to talk a little bit about how creative strategy changes based on KPIs. At the end of the day, creative needs to be built to drive action, whether it's installs or purchase, registration, or ROI. It can be anything from gaming, non-gaming, health and fitness, e-com. So maybe, Gabriel, you can share a little bit of insights about these two ads that you created for your client.
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about Social Point, Monster Legends, if you had a chance to play. The main KPI here, we wanted to it was ROAS. So we wanted to understand the way we can translate KPIs into creative or visual asset. So we just understood that by showing the pure gameplay, sometimes you can also add some different features, like showing some avatar customization and also like some monsters evolution, and like showing to the user that the game is not only that, you have much more to discover and to explore. And also like by showing the pure gameplay, like this was the main approach we took here to meet the KPIs, the ROA KPIs with the creative itself.
Amazing. We have gotten throughout this webinar a bunch of questions. So I think we're going to move over and answer some of the audience's questions. Are you guys ready? You guys let me know which
Ready,
one.
let's do this thing.
Question. All right. So the first question, how quickly are you able to come to a conclusion if the creatives are working and when they're not working? How much time do you give each creative before making a decision on whether they're going to keep on running or we're going to say bye-bye? Kevin, do you want to take it from your end?
Sure. Try to give them a certain amount of impressions. If we run on the Facebook platform, I believe that's 8,000 impressions that they recommend. So yeah, I try to give it at least 8,000 impressions and a certain level of spend associated with that creative before making a decision.
Now, I'd like to ask you a question on that. Does that determine on the KPI you're trying to reach, or just in general? So if you're trying to look at a long term or just CPI, or if you just have a certain KPI you're tracking, does that change, or is that just in general?
Yeah. So obviously there's no kind of just one specific, I guess, metric that's indicative of performance. So it could be either IPM, it could be the result rate, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I typically look at kind of just what's the result rate based off the performance of this creative. Because again, I mean, the end goal here for us is to drive in-app actions. If for whatever reason the creative has a high IPM but poor result rate for something that's down the funnel, obviously that's not ideal, right?
Gabriel, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, I do think that we need to let the creative just run for a while. I don't think that having the creative running like for 2 days, even though it's not well performing right now, maybe we can like just meet the user in a different environment, like in a different time of the day, or somehow I suggest to let the creative run a little bit more. Also because we put a lot of efforts in this outcome, in this specific asset. And it's very important for us also to understand it's not working, but we do believe in the concept. So I just think that sometimes if you believe in the concept, maybe we can just try to adjust and make some variations or other iterations till we get to the top performing creative, that it becomes our template. And from there, we just go broad.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely on that. I also think it's key to take a pause sometimes. Creatives, we have found that depending on what's happening right then and there, what's going on, that one creative might not work right now, but then in a couple weeks, a month from now, you throw that same exact creative up and all of a sudden you see a shift in performance. So, never walk away from a creative, never say that just didn't perform and you throw it away and you never go back to it. Okay, because it can come back around.
Yeah, I think that's the key in performance. Always to keep on testing, keep on trying, bring back something that may have not worked or may have worked. I know that we have seen some ads that run for years.
Forever.
Evergreen. So this is definitely something our audience should take away about always trying, testing, and giving them a chance. Another question asked, what tools do you recommend to manage the creative testing and analysis and iteration process? Is there any specific tools that you would recommend using?
If I can take this one, the start. Like I said at the beginning, we really use we use Allison in a daily basis. I think that I really recommend to use a creative analysis platform. I think you can get a lot of good insights. We know that time is money. We want to save time. We want something to help us in the decision making of what elements do we need to include in this next coming, in this new concept, this new creative. And then after we have all these ingredients, you just need to cook them. You just need to think about the concept that you want to involve all of these ingredients. So this, the main tool, I believe it can help, because it always helps a lot to understand what are the top elements, or maybe the top elements even in another vertical, that maybe you can combine and mix and just come up with a totally good creative. So creative analysis platforms.
Most definitely, I mean, test out different applications, see what works best for you and your needs. Tools like I think it's called Replay that does a great creative analysis that plugs into your different networks, and then you can upload a creative and it will go through and break down good parts, bad parts, and analyze that creative for you to kind of help you determine on why this is successful. It pulls out different keywords from your creatives and highlights those for you, and then compares those against everything else that you have running, and can kind of help you narrow things down. Always test different ones. There's new ones coming out on the market all the time, and if you don't find one that works and has all the needs that you have, work with a company and tell them kind of what you need, because they're always flexible. They're always trying to improve on their platform, and they love hearing feedback from their partners. You're there.
Yes, sorry, just realized I was muted. I have another question for you, and I have a feeling I know what you guys are going to answer. So this question is, when is the time to realize that your creatives are perfect and you need to stop creative testing? Who's going to take that one first?
Never.
Never. Yeah, We all agree. Just never.
It's a never, like we've said multiple times on all of us about iterating and variations. It's a never ever ending learning process. The world changes so quickly, the market changes so quickly, and if you're not adapting, then you're dying. So you have to constantly improve on, and the ad you found that was perfect and amazing and it runs for a while is going to die. It's sooner or later there's going to be something that makes that fall off that keen spot. So you have to always continue doing that review, analysis, iterations, variations, all new concepts, repeat, and repeat.
Totally. It's like a cycle. You
Yes.
just need to keep on, because also the audience is always changing, and the trends are always like with new stuff, or the technology also can bring a different placement or different platforms, different ways to engage our users.
Yeah,
Perfect.
definitely. Always keeping it contextually relevant. So it's going to be pretty important. Obviously something that we're advertising during, COVID is obviously not as relevant today. So, focusing, take for example, like focusing our creatives in terms of like how we adjust to reopening life, for example, it's obviously a little bit more contextual.
All right, we have just a couple of minutes left, so let's do one quick question and then we'll sum things up. Someone is saying that they heard Facebook will no longer be accepting fake ads on their platform. Did anyone hear of this? Any thoughts on that?
I've never heard about it. And I think that, as Will also showed us, I think it's totally a trend now.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard that. I've heard that in some countries, they, due to certain restrictions, they nail down harder on things like that. And that's why certain games have added those type of mini games into their game so that they can run those types of ads. I think it all comes down to the ad itself, and again, I can see where there's issues with fake ads that take you so far out there that you're like, this has absolutely nothing to do with the game. But then if you look at an ad, so if you look at the 4 that I presented, all the elements are there for the game. Arcana, it was a narrative-based game. The type of game ad that we showed was a narrative-based choices type of game with humor, romance, all of that's part of the game. SpongeBob, it's a cooking game. We showed elements of collecting food, going through the Krusty Krab, trying to get to that end result. So most definitely, I just think it comes down to how you represent that and how you put your game out there.
Exactly. So I want to thank you guys so much for your participation in this panel. And to everyone, thank you for the questions. We got so many more, but unfortunately we do not have time. We'll try to answer these afterwards. And just to summarize everything we've discussed. So iOS 14 gave us even more power when it comes to creative. And the creative strategy is a core element in every campaign, and its importance is huge. So create new concepts, but also iterations. Test different formats and different ad types. Try display ads, video ads, GIFs, Cinematograph, but don't do more of the same. Always try to explore new territories and to test new things, explore new different trends, and find inspiration from other categories and bring it into yours. Don't make everything super perfect. Just run with it. If it works, then make it perfect. And of course, don't forget the best practices for different platforms, but also don't forget the best practices that work for you. At the end of the day, you're trying a bunch of things, see what works for you, and keep on using it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.